Howdy folks, Eric here, back with another standard brew. Today, doing a pretty spicy mix-up on the classic Brightglass Gearhulk lists that I tend to play. This one, I'm calling it Brightglass Control. There's no sort of Lumbering World Wagon Mightform Harmonizer combo aspect. It's not really like an aggro list where we're using Brightglass as the top end. This is straight up, I think, Control, in which we are attempting to sort of ramp our mana a little bit, but not too much, and eventually garner huge advantages with our gallery of 1 mana artifacts, enchantments, and creatures that we've got. Mainly, we're built around Phenomena Recorder again. If you watched my Esper Sozin video, a lot of the core of this deck is similar, using Phenomena Recorder, aka Peter Parker's camera, to copy the triggers of our Seam Rips, our Aang's Icebergs, our Brightglass Gearhulks, our Bossing Says, etc., etc. We're doing the Fabled Passage Demolition Field sort of mana base. And the key thing here that I think is the most interesting thing to focus on is the inclusion of 3 Valgavoth's Lair. This is an enchantment land from Duskmourn. Importantly, it has hexproof. So if you earthbend it with Bossing Say or Earthbender's Ascension, you get this scaling hexproof threat, right? Also importantly, you can find these Valgavoth's Lair off of Brightglass Gearhulk to continue to support hitting your land drops, and eventually, like, you just have this very consistent game plan of, like, eventually get a Bossing Say on the field, present a big hexproof threat, very resilient to single target removal and board wipes because, you know, the Earthbent lands just come back. So as long as you can, like, survive, I think you're pretty likely to win a long game. So to support that survival, we're jam-packed full of removal, a bunch of interesting one-ofs, 4 Day of Judgments to manage the go-wide matchups. We're on 27 lands, pretty high land count. And then our sideboard, 4 Voice of Victories for other, you know, controlling matchups, or the blue decks, rather. 2 Elspeths, just once again as an additional big threat in the grindy games. 3 Soul Guide Lantern, 1 Authority, a couple Get Lost, extra instant speed removal, and a couple split ups. I found in testing that this deck is really, really sweet. Shout out also, by the way, the Scouring Storm Soul, aka Sandman. I kind of considered, like, maybe we could run an Ice Till Explorer or 2 in case our opponents are on demolition fields, but I think Scouring Storm Soul does enough to return, like, our Bossing Says and our demolition fields and Fabled Passages into play when we need them, nearly guaranteeing that outside of our opponent also having Graveyard Hate, which is otherwise not very good against us, that we can continue recurring our, like, we can keep everything around as we want it. Okay, let's try it out. Hop into some ranked matches. I think it's really, really, really sweet. And hopefully I can show that off a little bit here. All right, match number 1 here on the draw. I think this is a decent hand. It's a little bad into, like, Badgermole Cub decks, maybe, but we have a Brightglass Gearhulk. Our mana's pretty good. We have a Bossing Say. We have this little combo, the Valgavoth's Lair plus Bossing Say situation. Aang's Iceberg for turn 3 if we need it. Actually, I guess we don't have a way to cast it on turn 3. Shouldn't be a big deal. We'll see what we're up against. Gran. I think this plan is actually pretty good into Lessons, too, because Lessons gets a lot of points, especially if this is, like, the Monument to Endurance, like, Artist Talent build. They get a lot of points because typically main deck, people have a hard time answering the variety of permanents you need to deal with. But because Aang's Iceberg and Seam Rip are, you know, they hit pretty much everything that, you know, our opponent has. You know, Aang's Iceberg obviously hits everything. Seam Rip hits Gran, and the talent. I think we'll get pretty good main deck points there. Our board wipes won't be very good, but plus we have this main deck Ghost Vacuum, actually pretty relevant right off the bat here. We also have 4 main deck Insidious Fungus to blow up the talents, etc., etc. Yeah, we should line up pretty nicely here, I think. Let's just go ahead and nab that abandoned attachments. I don't think there's much of a reason to hold on to the Ghost Vacuum effect here. Swings in with Grand. I think they'll have a hard time getting their lessons count particularly high. They may be able to, if they cast enough spells successively. You know, sometimes Ghost Vacuum is not enough to keep them from hitting the 3 lesson requirement for Accumulate Wisdom. But their combustion techniques probably won't be very strong this game. Fires off an Accumulate Wisdom. Yeah, especially with the support from this Artist talent. I don't have a main deck Soul Guide Lantern. They've got the reduction online here, but they didn't capitalize off of this Accumulate Wisdom very well, or very highly. Let's just play out what we can here. Take them off of the reduction right away. And then next turn, we'll either blow something up with the Insidious Fungus, or, you know, if we get a window to resolve a Gearhulk here, finding 2 Seam Rips for these Artist talents looks pretty good. Or a Seam Rip plus a Phenomena Recorder. Monument on the field. Swing it in. They get to trigger it for free here. Off of Gran. Block with Gran. Sorry, block Gran with the Fungus. They might kill the Fungus. I don't think I really care about that too much if they do. Sure. 1 damage to my Fungus. Not hugely important here. Discards another Monument. Maybe a little weird. Okay, another Fungus. Not the worst draw. If I play a Gearhulk, maybe it makes more sense to just hit the Monument right now. I can permanently deal with it with this Fungus. That's 2 Monuments down, and they're not really, like, gaining card advantage that way. I think that's pretty good, and then next turn, if I hit another land drop, I can go Gearhulk into Seam Rip. Okay, they just scoop it up to the second Fungus. Interesting. I don't think that seems a little premature. Let's bring in the Soul Guide Lanterns. Oh, they're fully scooping it up. They have fully scooped it up. Okay, well, this kind of doesn't count. Let's move into the next match. Match 2, quote unquote, on the draw. Pretty good hand. I mean, once again, we have our lands. Need to draw into some action here. Fungus is pretty good. Fungus lets us go like turn 1 Fungus, turn 2 Demolition Field, sack the Fungus to ramp a bit. We won't be able to get a turn 3 Gearhulk that way because we'll need this Demolition Field on the field, but it opens up our options, draws us a card. You know, obviously we'd like to draw into our Day of Judgments in this matchup. Good to know what we're up against, though. Well, I'm just going to play... Yeah, I'm just going to play the Demolition Field. Enact the plan. Hope they don't have an Ouroboros here. Azure Beastbinder, not too scary. Ouroboros, pretty scary. Yeah, I mean, our opponent's doing the thing. Just gotta hope that we draw into a Day of Judgment here would be pretty choice. Go for a block, go for a sack. Phenomena Recorder. We'll put this Valgavoth layer into play on white. There's a Nurturing Pixie. Well, we can... Let's see what we can do here. Play a Fabled Passage. We can go like Recorder, crack the Fabled Passage, bump our mana count quite a bit here, and then Duskro's Reliquary, the Ouroboros. Slows them down a little bit, maybe buys us a little time. It seems okay. Let's copy this. Get our Gearhulk mana for sure. Need to make sure we grab a white source. Let's play the Ghost Vacuum and sack the Ghost Vacuum to the Duskro's Reliquary. You know, this buys us a turn if they don't have another Ouroboros. But, you know, it's possible they just have another Ouroboros, and I think that would probably be a lethal board. Oh, can they blow up my Duskro's Reliquary? They're looking like they have some kind of something. Nature's Rhythm for 4. Well, that ought to do it. Not quite, because they tapped a little bit silly. I don't think this is lethal. Yeah, they tapped wrong there. I don't think it's going to matter here, but interesting. Kind of a silly goof. Puts us to 1. All right, well, we know what we're playing against now. We can mulligan appropriately. Just bring in the split ups, bring in the get losts. I don't think we want Elspeth. We can go down some fungus here. Maybe just a 1. They're not that good in this matchup. And they're not particularly important on the play either, I think. They could be good on the draw for a block sack, ramp to 4 to sort of match the tempo of a turn 3 Ouroboros. So you can like turn 3 Day of Judgment, but they don't seem that important here. Let's just cut them all. All right, on the play, split up, great. Keep, snap, keep. Just lead on a plains here. We can play the Ghost Vacuum. I think Ghost Vacuum is fine to keep in creature matchups since we're so like board wipe removal heavy. We can just accrue a lot of value off of this. Plus they're on typically like Nature's Rhythm, and sometimes Winter Night Stories. Junith, no problem. We're doing it. We could go for a Demolition Field here. It's not hugely important. We might be able to cut them off of a color if we do it, though. And we're not really doing anything else. I think it's fine. I'm assuming they're on an island, but they might not be, you know? They might just be so green leaning. Grab plains here. Paw Patch. Okay. Not a huge deal. Do they have like an Azure Beast Binder here? Badgermole Cub. Well, the split up looks pretty good. It's not going to hit their Earthbent lands, but I think I'm pretty happy hitting everything else here. And I don't think I can afford to let them untap with double Badgermole Cub. I don't think the lands in their graveyard are important, but you might as well exile them. Earthbender Ascension. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to play the plains here and then split up all untapped creatures, I think. And then next turn, if they play an Ouroboros, I can go Gearhulk and Duskro's Reliquary it. So I'm not too worried about that outcome. And now I have some fodder to Ghost Vacuum. Ouroboros, fair enough. Drunith on as a 4/4 now, critically, for the next Ouroboros is a little scary. Land, well. Play a forest. I guess we just have to hope they don't have another Ouroboros. I could maybe postpone this a little. I could like grab a seam rip the Drunith, and then grab. I was gonna say Phenomena Recorder Duskro's Reliquary is pretty good, but yeah, I don't think I can afford to like let them just kind of hang out for a little bit. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go Duskro's Reliquary and Basilisk Collar. I found that the Basilisk Collar can really disincentivize your opponent from swinging into you, even if they have like particularly large guys, and then it lets your Brightglass Gearhulk freely swing and recoup some life. It's actually kind of good in this deck. Okay, well they have the horrible outcome of double Ouroboros off of the Drunith, so you know, it is what it is. Hope we draw a Day of Judgment. Nope. Okay. Well, I'd say they got this one. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, what are you supposed to do outside of having a board wipe? The inevitability of that card is just incredibly high. All right, match 3 on the draw. The one Cavernous Soul is a little awkward here. You know, this is actually not the worst hand I've ever seen. I'm gonna keep it. We're a little reliant on drawing a white source for sure for it to play out nicely, but double Insidious Fungus should help us cycle a little bit and maybe hit our land drops. I like having a Day of Judgment in my opening hand blind too, because I expect half of my matches will be against Ouroboros Badgermole Cub decks. Opponent mulliganing. They're down to 5. We'll lead on this Bossing Say. Cecil. Well, there's a white source, so never punished. Play the Fungus. We'll just seam rip this Cecil, and then maybe even consider playing the Storm Soul on turn 3. Although, I think it's probably a little more important to put this Cavern of Souls on Construct for the Brightglass Gearhulks into what is presumably Dimir midrange. They're considering their options. I would guess they take the Day of Judgment here. But, you know. Okay, another land. That's pretty good. Let's proceed with that plan of just putting this on Construct. We can play this second Insidious Fungus and then plan to sack one of them next turn. Or sack one of them during their turn. We need a second green source to start activating Bossing Say. I'd really like to show off during this run that like hex-proof Earthbent land idea. Sack the Fungus. There's a second green source. We'll put that in play. Demolition Field. We can also Earthbend our Demolition Fields, which is kind of interesting to like recur them and keep blowing up lands. Kind of attacks things on a different angle than a traditional control deck might. Swing in. Yeah, I'm just gonna play the Storm Soul here. He's pretty big. Yeah, I'm just gonna go for it while they're tapped out. You could argue maybe I could fire up the Demolition Field and hit something beforehand, but I think I'd rather just get it on the field while they don't have any blue mana. Swinging in with the bat, considering doing a Kaito move here, perhaps. They may come to regret this, because if they like tap down my Storm Soul here, I can just hit Kaito with an Earthbent land. So I don't think this is going to work out in their favor necessarily. Okay. Yeah, I'll throw away the Fungus here. I don't think it's hugely important. Cycle it away. There's a Gearhulk. Extra land on the field. Fire up the Bossing Say here. Let's make sure we target this Demolition Field, because I think that's pretty interesting. Hit the Kaito. And now I'd say we're in a pretty good position. They're pretty heavy on these man lands in this position. It's nice that we have this recurring answer to that. And their bat, yeah, it's just not going to be enough through the Seam Rip Day of Judgment situation. So pretty good showing there against the Dimir mid-range list. I would imagine we have a pretty decent matchup. Voice of Victory is pretty decent here for the time being. I mean, when Lorwyn brings the new Fatal Push, like 1 black instant, you know, I think Voice of Victory is going to be a little worse against these Dimir lists. But right now it's still pretty good. Bring those in and then probably go down on some board wipes. Maybe not all the board wipes on the draw, but at least a couple. And then maybe a couple funguses as well. I think the fungus is like, I don't know, it's a fine card in that it it can consistently ramp you for not so much investment, and it's very flexible. But once you know what you're playing against, there are typically better cards to be on, I think. It's just kind of like a decent main deck, jack of all trades, or a one of sideboard. It can really go either way. All right, match 3, game 2 on the draw. Pretty good hand. We have one of our funguses in our opener, which is where we want to see it, really. We can't play it turn 1, because our green source is this Valgavoth's Lair, but yeah, I just like that we have access to pretty good mana here. Another Valgavoth's Lair, not the worst draw. Okay. I'm assuming this is Malcolm or Floodpit's Drowner mana. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable just getting double green online here. Our mana is pretty good. The only thing that we kind of have to think about is double white for board wipes and, of course, the Brightglass Gearhulk casting cost. So, otherwise, once we have one green and 1 white, we're pretty much rolling. Play a land here. I think in this juncture, I'm pretty happy just getting this Basilisk Collar on the field. I don't think there's a whole lot else I have to do. They could have a Tishana's Tidebinder, but next turn is kind of the critical turn where I need to start holding up maybe Aang's Iceberg for Enduring Curiosity. Pass it back to you. They stab the fungus. Well, I'll take a 2-for-1 here. Sacrifice it. There's a Brightglass Gearhulk. Next turn could be an opportunity for us to get this on the field, actually, if they tap out for an Enduring Curiosity. Swing in with the Drowner. They don't have a third land, so maybe this is a Kaito, which also is not particularly problematic for us. There's the Kaito. I think Aang's Iceberg is maybe a little slept on right now. Just hitting everything. By the nature of it, hitting everything and also having flash is quite nice. Our deck is a little weak to annul, but that's not really the end of the world, is it? Yeah, I'm just going to play out my hand here pretty much. Hit the Kaito. Play the fungus. Play this Phoenix down. I think Basilisk Collar is kind of interesting too, with the idea of the hexproof Earthbent land situation, just giving another, helping you stabilize basically. I'm gonna play this Gearhulk. I have a pretty good window to do so if all they have is Floodpit's Drowner. I guess if they have Phantom Interference, that's not great, but getting this on the field's pretty nice. We can grab a Peter Parker's camera, and at the very least Peter Parker's camera, maybe even just 2. You know, hitting another land drop's not a terrible idea. Seam Rip. Grab the Phenomena Recorder. Grab. Maybe a Duskroar's Reliquary, because if they go Floodpit's Drowner on the Gearhulk, and then Enduring Curiosity here, let's play this Recorder, then I'm going to maybe regret not grabbing this Duskroar's Reliquary, although I have this Aang's Iceberg as well. Double the trigger to nab both the Drowner and the Curiosity. They decide to kill my Gearhulk. While I do have this Phoenix down on the field, can double that ability as well to get 2 creatures back. Kind of a sweet Phenomena Recorder deck, huh? What say you, Otter Jones? In your infinite wisdom. Pretty sweet, right, dude? Pretty sweet card. Okay, play the Plains. Not being facetious at all, by the way. Big shout out to my fan, my my buddy, my pal, Otter Jones. I think here I'm gonna play around Tishana's Tidebinder and pass. Anything I want to be doing here, I can do at instant speed. No need to run our Phoenix down into the Tishanas here. Just swinging in. I might just go for a doubled up Demolition Field here. Do a little basics check. Spyglass Siren. Okay. What you got? They're thinking of cracking a map here, leaving themselves a little vulnerable to this Gearhulk play. Well, I'm going to go for this before they hit their next land drop. I'm not going to double up the Phoenix down. I'm going to double up the Brightglass ETB. I think a lot of people don't realize that this is not sorcery speed only, because it feels like a card that would be. But yeah, you can Phoenix down to reanimate at instant speed, which is pretty nice. Double up this trigger. Kind of caught them at a critical juncture. Caught them at a critical juncture here. I'm 100% convinced they have a Tishana's Tidebinder in hand and are hoping maybe that they hit a 3rd land off this. Or, yeah, a 3rd untapped source off of this map. But I guess you could argue maybe they goofed a little bit. If that's what they have. Yeah, dude. Double the Brightglass trigger. Find, how about quadruple Demonic Tutor? Anyone? Quadruple Demonic Tutor? That's what it feels like in Modern a little bit. In Standard, maybe a little less so. But it's still pretty good, right? Grab another Phenomena Recorder. I mean, you can just grab a variety of things at this point. Grab a Pixie to be able to reset our recorders. And there's pretty much no way we can lose this match. We just have too much value, and they are not ahead enough to really, like, threaten us aggressively, especially with this Basilisk Collar on the field. Like, they can flash in their Floodpit's Drowner, but I have doubled up Seam Rip now, you know? And I can grab an Inspector to block with. It's just too much. I just have too many resources, basically. Oh, there's the Tidebinder. Okay. Strategic Betrayal, fine. Back to me. Well, Voice of Victory is a pretty good draw. I think we want to go Seam Rip. Double up the trigger here, for sure. We can use the Demolition Field, that's fine. Probably want to keep white mana available. Seam Rip the Cecil as well. Infinite value, play a Voice of Victory. Might as well just go for the Novice Inspector here. We can double up the Nurturing Pixie trigger too. Pick up the Inspector and the Phenomena Recorder next turn. Kind of nasty with it, actually. It's really unassuming, but like once you realize how this interacts with our removal, it's like what seems at first glance to be just a value card actually also kind of just becomes a tempo card when you get to double up these removal and ETBs, you know? Like 3 mana to remove 2 1/1s with 1 card essentially, right? Because you can do this 3 times. Yeah, the math is a little tricky on the exact card advantage, but it evens out. It basically amounts to infinitely ahead. Another Voice of Victory. Well, might as well go for that. See what they have to say about that. They let it resolve, and they scoop it up. Fair enough. Fair enough. Just way too far ahead. Okay, good showing there. Hop into the next one. Match 4 on the play. Sweet deck. Phenomena Recorder. We have good mana for our Gearhulk here with the Cavern of Souls backup. I kind of like this. It's not good if our opponent is playing a Badgermole Cub list, probably. It's probably likely that we don't win game 1 if that's what they're on, but we could if they have a slow hand. I think I'm going to lead on this tapped Valgaboth's Lair on green. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. So I can play Fungus next turn and this Phenomena Recorder. Well, it's the Badgermole Cub deck. I told you, it's about 50% of the time. Seam Rip's a good draw here. I think I want to delay the Seam Rip, though. We can do the Fungus, we can do the Phenomena Recorder, and then if they play a Badgermole Cub next turn, I can double up the Seam Rip trigger. Or any other mana dork, right? Pretty good early game answer. Tapped Breeding Pool, pass. Well, interesting. Play a Bossing Say here. Just gonna Seam Rip the Elves. They tap. Okay. I don't think they have anything going on. They're just being a little cheeky. Swing for 1. Pass it back. I think I'm just gonna send this Fungus. No need to keep it around, I think. Swing it in. Draw a card, put a land from my hand onto the battlefield tapped. Put this Cavern of Souls into play, naming Construct. We'll play a Brightglass Gearhulk. Not doubling the trigger here, but I'm going to grab another land drop. I think it's important to keep hitting land drops. And then I'm going to grab a Novice Inspector here, I think, because it's kind of the best thing I can be doing in conjunction with this Duskgrows Reliquary. As far as, like, targets, synergy pieces with the Duskgrows. Gives me a reasonable thing to sacrifice. Put this on white. And then next turn, if they play an Ouroborid, we have a pretty good answer to it with this Duskgrows Reliquary. Clean up a Badgermole Cub in the process, probably. Scouring Storm Soul. Pretty good draw here. It's quite large already. There's the Boyd. On the field. Tapped land. Well, we can beat this board. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. Aang's Iceberg is a really, really nice draw as well. To be able to guarantee that we can continue answering Boyds. I think I'm going to go for the Inspector idea here, though. Okay, let's think about it. So 1 to play the Inspector, 1 to play the Dusk Rose, copy the trigger. That leaves me with 1 mana available to play a Fungus. I guess that's okay. Otherwise, I could just maximize it with this Iceberg right now. But if they have some kind of main deck interaction, they're going to have a harder time interacting with the Dusk Rose Reliquary than the Iceberg. Probably doesn't super matter here. Play a Fungus. Play a Dusk Rose. Let's sacrifice this Novice Inspector over the Clue, I think. Exile the Boyd. Double the trigger. Exile the Cub. Start swinging in. We only need to hit our opponent 5 times, and eventually they will die. It's kind of like a Dan deck in that way. Or whatever that means, I don't know. I've never played Dan, but I think 4 is the number, if I'm not mistaken. Or a Boroid on the field. I think what I can do is probably swing in with the Gearhulk this turn and then hold up the Iceberg at instant speed. I don't think they have a whole lot of like actual protective effects. So I'll just put a stop on their main, and then if they choose to move into combat, I'll just flash in the Iceberg and spend my mana elsewhere. I don't need to necessarily double up this effect, but if they play another Ouroboros, let's say, or a Mockingbird, I'd be pretty happy to hit an additional target. Yeah, okay. Well, this is going to work out just great for me. Flash in the Iceberg. Yep, it's disgusting. Exile your stuff. And grab the Leyline Weaver, probably the most annoying one. Whee! Swinging in. Yeah, we don't really care. We can double up this Earthbender Ascension trigger, which is kind of nice, to Earthbend both of these Valgavoth layers and get extra land drops. Because it's all wrapped up into one trigger, which is kind of interesting. Puts us very, very ahead on mana. Very, very ahead on resources here. 2 counters on the Ascension already. Swinging in for 4. It's kind of nice with it. And, you know, it's kind of very similar to the idea of, like, Earthbender Ascension, Bossing Say. I guess what I would say, at face value, you might conflate this with the, like, Selesnya Landfall list, because we're a Selesnya deck playing Earthbender Ascension, but clearly, like, the way it plays out is much different. We're not reliant on this one big swing. We're much more reactive than proactive, but our proactive plan is pretty strong, too. Bring the board wipes, bring the instant speed removal, cut down on some funguses. Well, you know, maybe we do want them on the draw, though. Go down a Ghost Vacuum this time. Go down a Pixie? It's probably not that necessary. Something like this. Go down a Fungus. Maybe we could go down a land. Probably not. Go down a Fungus. This deck is sweet. I think this deck is really awesome. It's like a little underexplored idea. I think this Peter Parker's Camera plus enchantment removal package, where we're not playing traditional forms of card advantage, but we accrue so much value, you know, we don't really need to. And the Brightglass sort of helps round everything out, where it not only finds these synergy pieces, but also acts as a pretty nice body to be able to close out games with, or at least, like, block long enough to help us find, or eventually set up into the Bossing Say Valgavoth Slayer combo. So yeah, it's pretty sweet. All right, game 2 against Simic Go Wide. On the draw here, it's a pretty decent hand. I like that we have some early interaction. No board wipe, but shouldn't be too troublesome. It's probably better You know, it probably doesn't matter. Let's just lead on this Valgavoth layer on white. I was considering going for the passage, but just to activate these Hushwood Verges, but we can do that when it matters anyway. And just seam rip this Leyline Weaver. Play a second layer here while we have nothing else going on. White's really our more important color, so once you have double green sources, it pretty much makes sense to just choose white every other time. Great Divide Guide. Is holding up instant speed removal particularly important here? Probably not. They could have like an annul here, which would be a little annoying. But if they decide they want to just play an Ouroboros and hit one creature with it, I don't think that's a huge problem. Hexproof Valgavoth's Lair on the field. Kind of scary. Not a whole lot of true hexproof in Standard right now, and I really have not seen anyone else do this. It won me a match really handily at the last RCQ I played. I just happened to have like one or two Bossing Say in my deck and one Valgavoth Lair because I'm a Gearhulk guy, you know? And it came up and it just like straight up won me the game. I didn't have to cast any spells after that. I just like, my opponent was on some kind of control list and I just kept earthbending the Valgavoth Lair, and it's hexproof, you know. I don't think there are any other hexproof creatures in Standard. Get this shit off my screen. Anywho. We can also slap on a Basilisk Collar now. Start getting some life back. Probably makes more sense to just hold up this Angsteinsberg. But we can get the collar on the field, at the very least. Yeah, we'll swing in for 2. Eventually, this is going to be a real problem for our opponent once it actually starts getting counters from the Earthbender Ascension. I suppose you could say this is the real combo over Bossing Say, because, like, not only do we have the hexproof land, but we also have a way that we can just, like, really empower it as well. With the Ascension. They Paw Patch formation on the Seam Rip to get back their Leyline Weaver. Not a huge deal. The worst thing we could see right now is like if they have an Ouroboros and a way to protect it with like an Overprotect or something like that. Plays a Riddler. Okay, well that's not a huge deal. Tapped land. Passes. Well, swings probably. I could hit the Riddler now for tempo. It's probably not the worst idea. Start souping up this Valgavoth's Lair. Play a Fabled Passage. Start putting counters on the Lair here. And we'll get another green source just in case. Doesn't really hurt. Throw on the Basilisk Collar. Start swinging in. And with these Demolition Fields in hand too, that's like just, you know, double landfall triggers every turn for our Lair. Still don't have an answer to Ouroboros outside of this single Duskrose Reliquary. We'd have to give up probably the Basilisk Collar at that point. We'd really like to see a Gearhulk, I think. Maybe you could argue this turn I was supposed to go for a Demolition Field over the Fabled Passage because I just have this extra mana sitting around and the result's kind of the same. That's probably right. Maybe I can pretend I have something here. Vivian Reed. Well, that's pretty good. Seeing more play in Standard lately. Gonna hit my Angsteinsberg. At least I get a scry off of this. Yes. Another Earthbender's Ascension, another Aang's Iceberg. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's all pretty good. I don't think I have a way to draw into the next one, right? But if I grab this Earthbender's Ascension, I can Earthbend this other Valgavoth's Lair, or just keep putting counters on this Valgavoth's Lair. I think that's a little more important than answering the Vivian Reed right away, necessarily. Eventually, this Valgavoth's Lair is just going to be so big that they... Well, it will be trampling, I guess, so I can just swing into Vivian Reed, right? I don't really need the Iceberg. Hopefully I can get it big enough to swing through their whole board, though. Rex Sage. Okay, probably on my collar. No. Oh, on the Earthbender's Ascension. Yeah, maybe that makes more sense. Good thing we have another one here. It's probably worth it to... Okay, well, I can't trample into the Vivian Reed anymore. But I can still resume this process of presenting a very large Valgavoth's Lair attacker. Play a Demolition Field here. Let's just go for it right now. Guess we'll just hit up Breeding Pool. Doesn't super matter. And then next turn we'll get some counters, get Trample, Death Touch, Trample, classic combo. Help guarantee that we can swing into the Vivian Reed or at their face. I don't know. Kind of depends on what else we draw, I suppose. We have blockers for their little weenies. They'll be swinging in the air, hitting some cards off Vivian Reed. Kind of feels like they don't have a Boyd in hand quite yet. Now they do. Would love to just draw a board wipe. You know, I wouldn't mind hitting my Valgavoth's Lair in the process. Bossing Say wouldn't be a bad draw. Well, in this position, it's kind of board wipe or bust now that Ouroboros on the field. Yeah, just the inevitability of all that. I find it a little troubling in Standard right now. I don't know. Name another card in the history of ever, a creature in the history of ever, where like needing a board wipe specifically has been so important, like a single creature. Swinging in. So I don't have to block this, but I think in this position, it's kind of board wipe or bust. Yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense to give up the creature quite yet. Brightglass Gearhulk. Can we do anything with that? Well, I have this Duskrose Reliquary. I can copy the trigger with a camera, but do I have enough mana for all of this? Play the land. 4 to cast the Gearhulk, 1 to play a Recorder, 1 to play a Reliquary, 2 to copy. I have a Death Touch Trampler. It probably makes sense to like swing in with this, and then... Gosh, I don't know. Is there anything else I could do here? I don't think I can present like a huge attacker. I could just hold back the lair, but they could kill my Gearhulk with a Vivian Reed. I have to kill the Riddler because it's just going to fly over everything. Kind of a tricky predicament here. I guess I'll start by swinging at the Vivian Reed. Just take it off the field, recoup some life here. They might block poorly if they don't think about the Death Touch Trample synergy here, which could be pretty ideal for us. They don't block. Makes sense. Play the Gearhulk. Grab a recorder. Can I grab an inspector too? No. I think I'm just kind of dead to this board, right? It's kind of a little bit annoying how dead to this board I just am. It's all just so big. Like, once again, board wipe or bust, right? Board wipe or bust. Head into game 3. I don't know if I'm allowed to keep this. I might keep this if I had like a Fabled Passage in hand. I don't even have double white for a board wipe. I'm gonna have to mulligan this. Okay, this is pretty good. It's a little dependent on hitting a third land, but we have early get lost. Pretty good interaction here. I think I'm gonna skip out on the Brightglass with this hand. I think the Phenomena Recorder plus Aang's Iceberg should be a good enough play here to slow things down. I'm a little tempted to just lead on the Recorder. Is that greedy? I'm not playing Get Lost on turn 2, right? Pretty much no matter what. I'm going to lead on the Recorder here in the off chance that we draw a land and I get to ramp with this Fabled Passage. There's a Day of Judgment. Well, pretty good draw. Badgermole Cub. Yeah, I just have to crack this passage here. I can't survive an Ouroboros outside of holding up Get Lost. Would be nice to be able to ramp with this, though. Leyline Weaver. They're out of the gates. That's what this deck does. Grab a Plains. Aang's Iceberg. Not a bad draw, per se. Just need to hit our land drops on 27 lands. Pretty likely that we do at this point. See if our opponent has more action. Vivian Reed. Okay. Quantum Riddler, which they can just hard cast. A deck that can, on turn 3, cast a 5-mana Planeswalker and a 5-mana creature. Do I sound tired? It's just not, I don't know. I don't think it's particularly interesting anymore. Yep. Oh, they choose to warp it. Okay, getting creative here. Get a little extra. Yeah, it's free off the Leyline Weaver. Crazy, man. Crazy. Llanowar Elves. I have to blow up the Vivian Reed and hope I just start hitting my land drops, I think. Great Divide Guide. Okay. And they get to swing for 4. make it make fucking sense. Make it make sense, dude. I don't really get it. I don't really get it. Make it make sense. Fabled Passage. All right. Well, that's probably our best draw in this situation. Get to hold up, get lost, and ramp into our Day of Judgment here. Plays a land. Plays a Riddler. Untaps the Leyline Weaver. 3-mana Riddler. Draws some cards. Has infinite mana. Just hope we just have to dodge Craterhoof Behemoth this turn, basically. Nature's Rhythm for 4. We can beat that. Now, what we can't beat is probably second Nature's Rhythm for 4 for another Ouroboros. Man, the way the Leyline Weaver interacts with all of this is... I mean... It's clearly quite good. Puts a counter on the Boyd. Another counter on the Boyd here. Okay. 3 power Ouroboros. Triggers. I mean, it's board wipe or bust, right? Swinging in for 5. So I'm dead to Nature's Rhythm for a Badgermole Cub next turn. Okay. See what they have, I guess. Grab a Plains. Grab a Forest. Plains. Well, we have a Day of Judgment. I'm not sure that it's going to be enough. We'll see. It could be enough if I survive this turn, but once again, just like haste from the Earthbent land is enough to kill me here. They left a Paw Patch formation on top, interestingly enough. Brightglass Gearhulk. Well, that's pretty good. We can get a creature to block with here. That way, if they have removal for this first Brightglass, I can, at the very least, survive a turn here. And I think I have to grab Basilisk Collar as well. So let's go Novice Inspector, Basilisk Collar. Start recouping some life here next turn. I mean, once again, it's board wipe or bust, right? Like, I'm dead 1,000 times over without that critical Day of Judgment. Still might be, but at least we have a bit of a game on our hands. I think our opponent played that turn a little poorly, to be honest, though. Serac, fine. And they just have a Paw Patch formation. Well, let's go Basilisk Collar. I think I'm just going to get lost the Serac this turn to keep them off of big mana for this Nature's Rhythm. Keep them from being able to, like, do some nasty, hasty stuff. Paw Patch formation only destroys enchantments, not artifacts, so we're in the clear there. Just swing in for 4 here. We're fighting back. I'm still a little like, I don't know. I think I have to kill the Serac here. Just to keep them off of the Harmonize, basically. And control player sit up a little bit. I'm feeling a little better. I think I'm in this game. I thought I was out from like turn 2 onward, but I think I'm kind of in this game. We have the double Aang's Iceberg situation. There's a Badgermole Cub. We have a blocker, so they can't kill us, and we're up to 5 now. Map on the land. Okay. What are they thinking about here? I'm kind of surprised they didn't cycle the Paw Patch formation. But maybe they're worried about these Aang's Icebergs. Chooses to cycle it now. Thinking about swinging in, decides not to. Bossing Say. Interesting. Well, I'm going to swing for 4 here. And I think I'm just going to hold up the Aang's Iceberg. I can play a second recorder. And pass. I think I'm doing okay here. They can Nature's Rhythm, but they can't Nature's Rhythm for a Crater Hoof quite yet, I think. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. They can do it for 5. So they would need like a second Badgermole Cub to really hammer that idea home. Or a Boroid. Let's set a stop here. They're going to pop a map on the Ouroboros. Well, I guess I'll respond to this with my Aang's Iceberg. They could have a Pop Hatch Recruit in hand, but possibly not. And I do have a second. I do have a second Aang's Iceberg here for next turn, if they do have some way to save this. Taps for 2. Okay. So they're going to let this happen, or are they thinking about blowing this up after the fact? I mean, that's fine. They'll get an extra land out of the deal, but still kind of ahead now, actually. Going for a Paw Patch formation, well, I get to Scry 2. Off the water bending, we just have a mishmash of artifacts around to be able to do this. Seam Rip. I'm going to pass on the Seam Rip. I have the Aang's Iceberg here already. I think I'd really rather just, like, draw another Gearhulk or a board wipe would make me feel even better, you know? Okay, Ouroboros triggers, bigger lands, not a huge deal. Valgavoth's Lair, worse than the Seam Rip, but not awful. I don't think I can do like a secret fun lethal here. A secret fun lethal maneuver. I think I'm just going to go for this Aang's Iceberg right now. Play around possible additional interaction. Use up this recorder here. And they scoop it up. They didn't like the interaction. they didn't like being interacted with, turns out. Turns out they fucking hate that. So oh geez Louise. Sorry if I was just like in a fugue state that whole game. I was just like, this is over. I lost hope so quickly, but pulled it out. Brightglass control. Technically 3-1 kind of. I mean, we made our first opponent rage quit. Let's head into the last match here. Or maybe I'll play one more after if it's not a big grind again. All right, match number 5, probably the final match of the series on the draw. Having a good run so far. Love to draw this Day of Judgment. Gonna lead on, you know, probably makes the most sense to lead on the Fabled Passage here. Against Dimir, I think it'll be fine if we just sort of dribble out these fungi. Another fungus. I know if I play the Fabled Passage here, I can play the Bossing Say untapped next turn, but I'm sort of hedging on the possibility of ramping with this Fabled Passage still, so that's why I'm just going this route. Don't think it super matters. They don't seem to have anything. There's a land. Not a bad draw here. They could have a Tidebinder in hand. Not much of a reason to swing into that. I think I'd rather do like a block sack maneuver. Flood Pit's Drowner, fine. Well, now I can swing. Yeah, I think I would trade a fungus for a Flood Pit's Drowner. Seems fine to me. The triple fungus start. No one expects it. Yeah, it's not awful. It's really not awful. They're very flexible creatures, right? We have a bit of a board right now, and then we get to just kind of send them away. They're kind of like Novice Inspector in that regard. Goes to tap my fungus. You freaking got it, dude. I don't know what else to say. I still probably get to kill this Kaito next turn. I guess not guaranteed with the vigilance from the Drowner, but you freaking got it, dude. If I had a Seam Rip, I think I could do it. I guess I could trade like a Bossing Say activation for a Flood Pits Drowner. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. But then it wouldn't mean I couldn't play a Novice Inspector at that point. I guess I could Bossing Say the Fabled Passage, sack it, ramp a little bit, play a Novice Inspector, still be pretty decently ahead there. I think I'm going to trade a Bossing Say activation for this Flood Pits Drowner. I think that's okay. Swing at Kaito. Accrue a little advantage there. Maybe they'll feel safe enough to like start playing some stuff that I can actually hit with my removal. I guess I could have just Aang's Iceberged the Kaito. That would have been fine too. Sure. I don't think it's going to be super important. I mean, it's a lot better for me here if they decide to tap out for Enduring Curiosity. Oh, backup Kaito. Okay. Well, that's fine. I'll just hit this one. Taps down. Taps down. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. They're just trying to kill me, I guess. Pretty funny. Yeah, I'm pretty much down to Aang's Iceberg, the Kaito now. So I can fire up the Bossing Say, ramp on this first Fabled Passage, and play the Aang's Iceberg. I think that's pretty good. I don't really think I need more Chumpers. You know what? It doesn't hurt to have more Chumpers, though. Play the Novice Inspector, be able to block the Flood Pits Drowner for their other Kaito in hand. Exile this Kaito here. I think that's okay. I could also play this Basilisk Collar. Not much of reason necessarily to hold back on 2 Fabled Passages here. Let's grab another Plains. Play the Collar here. Seems fine. Could use some real draws here. Perhaps a Peter Parker's Camera or a Brightglass Gearhulk. Swinging in. Well, you know I'm going to block. You think I'm stupid or something? I saw you have the Kaito in hand. And it's a Novice Inspector. It's born to die. Come on. What is this swing? Oh, you're going to shuffle in my Insidious Fungus? Dog, I literally don't care if you decide to do that. There's Cecil. Kaito 2? Or Kaito OG, I guess is what it is. Spyglass Siren. Pop a map. Yeah, I think I gotta start doing some Bossing Say stuff, basically. I don't know. It doesn't seem super worth it to wipe this board necessarily. Tidebinder on top. Yeah, maybe it is worth it to wipe the board. Let's see what we draw here. Another fungus. Okay. So I can like... Maybe I just put a Basilisk Collar on this fungus so I can block Cecil. That's not bad. And then I can play another fungus and hold up. Let's do the Basilisk Collar here. And then I can just hold up both of the fungus sacks plus this clue. I think that's okay. See if they play out more stuff for a Day of Judgment. They'll do a flippity flop maneuver on their Kaito here. AKA ninjutsu. For the uninitiated. We'll make this trade. I think that's okay. Yeah, I think that's okay. Alternatively, you know, you could just sack to draw there and maybe think about wiping the board. They've left themselves in a pretty precarious mana situation. They can't replay this Tishana's Tidebinder. I think they let auto tap rule their life for a second there. Bumping up the Kaito. Okay. Sack a clue. Phenomena Recorder. Hey, that's a pretty good draw. Let's untap. There's a Valgavoth layer. Can I double up a Bossing Say? Do I have enough mana for that? I can play the Recorder. Activate Bossing Say for 3. No. Not quite, but I'm getting pretty close to that. I think what I do here is I just play the Recorder. Play a lair on green here. Play second Fungus. And now I can, like... It probably makes more sense to go for the ramp piece right now. And then hold up one sack. This plays around Tishana's Tidebinder a little bit. If they want to Tishana's Tidebinder my Insidious Fungus activation, I'm a little more happy in that case. You know, I could even just like put a Basilisk Collar on my Fungus and force them to tap it down with Kaito, basically. Keep them from having any particularly reasonable swings in. I kind of like that. I just pass. And then we have a lot of mana next turn. We can double up this Bossing Say trigger on this Valgavoth lair. Present a pretty difficult threat to deal with for their deck, particularly. So they do tap my Fungus here. I could have maybe Legend ruled their Kaito in response. I guess I still can. It probably makes sense to do that, doesn't it? Save quite a lot of life here. Sack the Aang's Iceberg. I guess they can sack the one coming in, which is actually just fine. They're gonna Tishana's Tidebinder this? Why? Just sack the one coming in. I just want to scry, bro. No way you Tishana's Tidebinder. Okay, get baited, I guess. I don't know. Who cares? Get baited, I guess. I am at 6, but I'm going to be swinging with a big hexproof Valgavoth layer, and I could put a Basilisk Collar on it. I've got quite a lot of mana next turn. Could just wipe the board here. Die to Kaito. I have enough mana to fire up the Bossing Say. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. It costs effectively 4 mana to Valgavoth layer. Yeah, I have enough to do it all. Where I can swing at Kaito with a hexproof Death Touch lifelinking 4/4, which is pretty good. Probably keeps me alive another turn. Although their ninjas are quite large, so the Soulstone Sanctuary situation is not great for us. I kind of think it's all I have, though. So, Bossing Say on the Valgavoth layer, double the trigger on the Valgavoth layer, hexproof 4/4. I guess I don't have to swing into this Kaito. Because then, so if I do, and they block with the 2/2 flyer, if I swing into the Kaito, I'll go to 10. They'll tap down my Fungus and swing back at me for 1,000,000. So I kind of actually think I'm not allowed to. But I might be dead anyway. Yeah, we'll see. I don't think I'm allowed to swing. But I might just be dead anyway. They move into combat, which I think is probably not right. I can still sack this Aang's Iceberg, which cracks me up. Yeah, I'll take some amount here. Flashes in the Enduring Curiosity. Interesting. I don't think I like this at all. Hits me, they draw. I have to sack this Aang's Iceberg here. I'm gonna do it in their end step, I suppose. Legend rule the Kaitos. They'll get one extra loyalty counter on their Kaito as a result if they decide to like zero here. But if I scry into an Aang's Iceberg and I get to exile both like Kaito and Tidebinder here and kill their Kaito, exile their Tidebinder and Curiosity here and kill their Kaito, they roll up the Kaito. So that's even better for me with this Aang's Iceberg sack line. And stab my fungus. Okay. Really weird play there, right? Oh, I missed my window to sack the Aang's Iceberg. Oops. Earthbender Ascension's kind of huge here, though. I can make this an 8/8. And then wipe the board, maybe? I can blow up the Curiosity with the fungus to keep them off attackers. I guess what I need to do is, like, make this a 6/6 and present a chumper. That seems okay. Or maybe I just go all in on it. It's kind of freaking huge, right? And it's going to be trampling here pretty soon. Running out of lands in my deck. Blow up the Enduring Curiosity. Swing at Kaito, force them to block, and then I don't think they have lethal next turn. No, wait, they definitely do. They definitely do, because of the ninja emblems and the Soulstone Sanctuary situation. Well, maybe they don't now. Now that they've given up Kaito. Maybe they don't now. Because this is 11 on the board now. That was a huge mistake. Huge blunder. Just block with the Tidebinder. Swing in with the Soulstone Sanctuary. Yeah, you're drawing cards now, but I'm alive, importantly, with a big hexproof lifelink Death Touch 8/8. Draw a Ghost Vacuum. Not hugely important, but what I can do is continue to buff this land, or I could swing, wipe the board, and then start putting counters on my Valgavoth Slayer again. They'll be able to swing with a 6/6 next turn. Yeah, I think I like that. Swing for 8. No blocks, probably. Kind of a weird decision for my opponent, I think. And Ghost Vacuum's not a horrible draw. Eventually. Wipe the board. Why did this trigger 4 times? Oh, because I Earthbent it 4 times. Crazy, man. Earthbend it again. It's hexproof, importantly. Play the Ghost Vacuum. I don't think I'm dead, right? I'm at 9. That's kind of a big number against the Dimir deck. What a weird match. I kind of think my opponent made some sloppy plays. A third Soulstone Sanctuary might be a bit of a problem for us, though. See what they have going on. Let's go ahead and exile the Flood Pit Drowners here. Pretty good into these sanctuaries. Wonder if I'm missing a lethal somewhere. Day of Judgment. Interesting. Well, I could just crack the Ghost Vacuum. Tap this down. Swing at them for 4 lifelink. Probably. Do I have enough mana to do all of that? 6 to crack this, so probably not. I could just like... I could just wipe the board again and make another blocker. I could just... I could just make another blocker, equip Basilisk Collar, and then if they deal with my stuff... You know, it's probably like this. Probably, right? Put another counter here, equip the Basilisk Collar, don't swing, and then they probably can't find lethal next turn. And then I'm starting to threaten like a trampling Valgavoth Slayer, and if they fire up another Soulstone Sanctuary, I have this board wipe. The worst thing they could maybe do right now is play another Kaito to set up a lethal attack next turn through a board wipe. Kind of a weird game. Very grindy. But I think this Ghost Vacuum situation is pretty good for us, actually. Outside of them having a Tishana's Tidebinder. Block here. Go up to 7. Pretty important number. Another Enduring Curiosity. Don't know why you're flashing that in right now. Trigger my layers. Put another counter on the Earthbender Ascension here. Let's go for... Yeah, I think I like the double Flood Pits Drowner idea here. Back to me. Aang's Iceberg. Okay. Is there some sort of secret, tricky, sneaky lethal here? Probably not. Probably not. I'm gonna assume they have a Tishana's Tidebinder in hand, which was pretty annoying through this. Ghost Vacuum. I'm gonna go for this Valgavoth Lair activation, or sorry, Bossing Say activation on the lair. Attempt a collar on the lair here, and then just hold up this Aang's Iceberg, I think. I can delay this Ghost Vacuum one more turn, I think. Pass it again. I have a little bit of interaction still. Flood Pits Drowner. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to go for the Exile on the Curiosity now. Probably the safest play while they're tapped out. Infinite Death Touch Hexproof 2/2s, by the way. Lifelink 2/2s over the course of turns. Pretty annoying to deal with. Buy your Valgavoth layers now, because it's kind of disgusting. Gonna block. I have no qualms with this. I guess they could Tishana's Tidebinder the Earthbend trigger. That's kind of interesting. Right? To keep it from coming back. Nope, they decide not to do that. Okay, Exile. Guess we start going for like Novice Inspectors here. They have to save the Tidebinder for this Ghost Vacuum. It's just getting too out of hand. And they scoop it up. And they scoop it up. They can't beat the infinite value. Okay, whoa. Game 2. That was only game 1? No. Saving the best for last. We got a really short first match and some really long matches in the back half, but pretty fun though. We just kind of like wore down our opponent's sort of mental endurance, I think. Bring in the voices. Go down on some fungi. Yeah, probably all the fungi. Try it like that. All right, game 2 on the draw. Mulligan that first hand. This is much more like it. Wow, this is a really good hand. Probably just skipping the Day of Judgment here. More concerned about having this Aang's Iceberg for a Curiosity / Kaito. Lead on the Fabled Passage. Opponent off to a start. We might just not be able to keep up with them. We'll see how they play out here. But even if they get the turn 3 Kaito, we get the follow-up, which is pretty good. Gearhulk, also a nice draw. Tidebinder, very good against us. Pretty good against us. We have a lot of triggers to counter. Cecil swinging in, hurting themselves quite a bit. Grab a forest here. So now any land we hit outside of Demolition Field lets us cast this Gearhulk. Bit of tension here, but we're on such a high land count that it's okay. And also Demolition Field kind of gets a pass as far as colorless lands go, right? Because it can help us get a basic. Goes for the Kaito. Probably just tapping down my voice here, but not hugely important. They're flipping the Cecil here. Off to a rip roaring start. Big Cecil swinging in. Well, I like that we have a Voice of Victory to keep them off of the Tidebinder on this Seam Rip. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go for the Aang's Iceberg now. Deal with the Kaito, and then on my turn, next turn, I get to go Seam Rip on the Paladin and play a Scouring Storm Soul. So we're in a pretty good position. Go for Siren. They haven't really dealt with the important bit on this Voice of Victory, right? Going all in on the Cecil. Flash Freeze. Well, you're going to keep that on top? Dog, I got a Voice of Victory. You have to deal with this first. Okay, well, double Seam Rip is just kind of nasty. Keeps us from losing to a Kaito here. Let's make sure we actually do it, though, rather than just saying it out loud. Whee! I don't know. I find this really, really satisfying. Like, once you have the first Phenomena Recorder hit, and it's already basically paid for itself, right? It's a 1-for-1 kind of at this point. Now it's just a gravy train, dude. Soulstone Sanctuary, pretty annoying. I don't just lose to it, but if they have, like, some way to tap this Storm Soul, it's pretty annoying. Oh, wait. I have a Demolition Field. Okay. Don't be a dingus, Eric. Use the Demolition Field. I can't copy the trigger, unfortunately, but this keeps me from losing and lets me cast my Gearhulk next turn. And I might as well swing, I guess. It's scary to do it, but they can't cast anything here, and having a blocker is unimportant. Oh, interestingly enough, you could double the mobilize trigger, huh? If you needed an extra 2 damage. Something to think about. I think I just want to land here. I'm a simple guy. I'm not asking for much. Give me access to double Aang's Iceberg. Give me access to Gearhulk with follow-up. Flashes in the Tidebinder out of desperation. By flashes in, I mean plays it main phase. Gearhulk. Yeah, I guess we just go for that. Gonna resolve. We have blockers now. They can force me to give up my Voice of Victory, but they'll lose something in the process. Let's grab another land. Let's us double spell next turn. I think we kind of want this Dusk Rose Reliquary. Seems pretty decent. Yeah. I think we can put this on green. Doesn't super matter. Can't swing in. That would be ludicrous. They could have double removal in hand, and I could just lose. Seems pretty unlikely. If they have removal for the Brightglass, and I have to chump with the Voice, that's not ideal. Opens up their Flash Freeze, but our removal is not green, so we'll see. Plays the Tishan as Tidebinder. Okay. They just want to go wide. I see. Well, they're not going to like what I'm about to do to them here. Actually, you know what? I was going to go for like a Duskrose Reliquary play, but I think it's just double up this Aang's Iceberg. I don't think it super matters either way. Yeah, this is nasty, gang. I really like how efficient all of our removal becomes. We can just swing in with the voice here. If they have Flood Pit's Drowner, 1, 2, they would need to also draw a land to be able to kill me through this, and this sets up lethal next turn actually. Duress? Well, that's not good enough. You can take a Duskrose Reliquary, I suppose. So now they get to fire up the Soulstone Sanctuary here. I can't swing for lethal, so I guess I might as well just play this Gearhulk. And I suppose we can grab another land. Does that matter? Probably not. Grab a Nurturing Pixie. Pretty likely we win through that avenue. And then maybe a Basilisk Collar as well, just for fun. Play a Pixie here. I think I can maybe pick up this Phenomena Recorder and be pretty happy about that. Reset it. I could swing with the Gearhulk here. Yeah, there's probably not a reason not to. Guarantee that I have lethal next turn. Now I'm pretty sure there's not anything they could have to get themselves out of this one. I think the Voice of Victory just shut them down way too hard with their Tishana's Tidebinder Flash Freeze plan. They have a Drowner. They can drown one of my Gearhulks. But they can't keep me from winning next turn, I think. So if I block with a Pixie, I can play a Recorder and double mobilize for lethal. All right, good run. 4-1 overall. Pretty sweet deck. Obviously, match one, a bit of a free win in our favor, but I like to think we just sort of like stun locked our opponent into, I don't know, just deciding they didn't want to exist anymore. I think everything kind of played smoothly and had a chance to sort of, you know, shine. Earthbender Ascension I think is really huge for this deck. I might go up to a full 4 just to be able to consistently Earthbend the Valgavoth layer and give us that angle. Plus I like that it gives the trample to the Earthbent lands and gives it a way to progressively get larger. The 4 Fungus, I ended up cutting them in a lot of the matchups, but they're fine. They're just generically pretty good. And as opposed to something like a Llanowar Elves, which you might argue is like, why aren't you just on Llanowar Elves? The fact that it like still pays itself off and allows me to board wipe on turn 4 or turn 3, you know, it cycles essentially, right? Where a Llanowar Elves would just die to our own board wipe. So I think that makes sense. Overall, pretty good. Never saw a need for Elspeth. Maybe that could change. Maybe that could go out of the board. I'm not that good at evaluating when Elspeth is particularly good, though, to be honest. I think it's good in like control matchups. Obviously, it's gives you some more permanence to work with, but still, it's pretty expensive, and we're kind of naturally good against control being on this Valgavoth Lair plan anyway, I think. So I don't really know, but it worked out nicely. I hope you enjoy this one, Otter Jones. Phenomena Recorder List, of course, Brightglass Gearhulk. If you like this video and want to see more, I'll be posting daily standard brews, etc., etc. Maybe iterating on my past brews, or if you have any viewer suggestions, I'm happy to take them. One idea I've been tossing around is like, I don't know if anyone's into this. You know, I'm a relatively free to play player, but if you wanted to see a certain idea or a card put into work or into action, and you wanted to send something my way to support that, like a $10 dono or something to buy the wild cards for me, I'm not saying you have to. I'm not even suggesting that it's something you should do. But if you're interested in that and you're really excited about an idea and seeing me take the time to work on it, and you like the kinds of decks I come up with and you want to see what I would do with a certain card, I can arrange a system for that, maybe just like a Venmo or something. My brother kicked it off. He sent me $10 to do a Yathen Road Watcher build. So I think that'll be the next video. And I'll sort of talk about that more then. But for now, thanks for watching. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and have a good one. Bye-bye.